Talk don't bother me.
And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo. Joni Musi is away, but she'll be back with us next week. In the meantime, though, we have Priya of Warcry Cinema joining us, a photojournalist, a videographer who's been doing a lot of activist work here in the New York area for many years. Welcome to Let Them Talk, Priya.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here at M&N.
Great to have you on. There's a lot we could talk about. We have one of your videos we're going to play behind us later on in the show, but I want to talk a little bit about yourself because you're an interesting person. You're a pretty well-known activist in the New York area, and you've been involved in a lot of activism, particularly around the environment and around nature.
Yes, nature.
And just recently you were in nature, weren't you? You just came back from beautiful Maine.
I know. I didn't get to get away all summer. I've been in the city, and not out of choice, just, sometimes you get stuck.
Right.
I was lucky enough to get away to Maine for just a few days, but it makes a huge difference to be able to reconnect with the natural world and sort of disconnect from these artificial systems and processes and rhythms that can kind of really throw off your own rhythms, and that's why people feel weird and funny and all out of sorts. You really need to take time to realign yourselves. And not that you can't do that in the city, but it's Manhattan, so you need to actually maybe find somewhere that isn't surrounded by buildings and SUVs and things like that.
Well, what affected you? What connected you to nature? What made you so interested in the environment and about? Let's get serious here because we're talking about your concern with the destruction of the environment.
Well, sure, yes, that is, but the only reason you would be concerned with the destruction of the environment is if you developed a connection with the environment in the first place. Otherwise, why would you care? You wouldn't even know what you're missing. And it's a lot of people talk about the environment in some kind of removed, theoretical, abstract, when in fact, you're of the earth. It's not like it's an object outside of you. You're part of nature, and even though you don't feel like that because you live in a box and everything's electronic, and the fact is all life on Earth, everything we need to live comes from this planet.
Sure.
And if we're not, well, we've already pretty much headed towards destruction of our life support systems here, and it's a pretty suicidal track. But what I really wanted to say was how restorative it is for your spirit and being and well-being to reconnect with basic things like the sun and the earth and the wind and maybe hear what nature has to say. And it's not some woo-woo, hippie stuff, or how it's really the way we've evolved as a species, understanding how these processes work and depending on them and making a heartfelt connection with them. Nowadays, it's so, like, kids, they almost never, a lot of them grow up, plugged into their iPod or plugged into their TV or video game or whatever, and don't ever really get to, like, plug into to nature. And it's really sad because they end up seeking these thrills and feelings and all these artificial and maybe drugs and all these other things when in fact this ecstatic feeling and calm, soothing, all these feelings are actually available naturally if you just try to go and find that.
What about the ecstatic feeling of sitting up in a tree in order to protest or prevent cutting down of trees? Because I know you have done a lot of work covering the stories of folks who have done direct action in part of the environment.
Well, what Paul's
to save
talking
the environment.
About, well, an effort to save, yes. What Paul's talking about actually is not sitting up in a tree, not here in like Central Park or you could certainly try that, but I think the squirrels here get a little aggressive and want to kick you out. Well,
right.
The squirrels here know how to work.
And the hawks.
Yeah, I know, it's like a little gang of squirrels. But what he's actually talking about is the time I spent in the Pacific Northwest, where the trees they have are, well, they have places that have never been logged or cut.
Yeah, clear cut.
Or clear cut. Most of the stuff on the East Coast has
Old
usually
growth.
been cut here and grown back, but there are places out in the Northwest, in the Pacific Northwest, which you should see before it's all gone, if you have the chance. That's never been cut. So these places, these forests have been growing for like 1,200 years or longer. I mean, these have evolved ecosystems really ancient before the white man set foot on this continent. And they're very pristine, intact ecosystems, very special, and very little left because most of it's already been logged and destroyed. So we wanted to protect these places because they're so beautiful. I grew up in New York, and the only big tall things around here are buildings, but imagine something that's 200 feet tall that's been growing for 1,000 years, and it's a tree that at the base of it, it maybe takes like 13, 15 people if you all hold hands to make a circle around it. That's how big it is. I mean,
how long does it take
like
a
Lord
power?
of the Rings or some ancient. I mean, it's really, you got to see it to believe it. And
How long does it take a power saw to take one of those trees down?
well, they use all kinds of machines, and well, that's the thing. It's very quick to destroy, but
1,300 years to grow.
Sure.
A few minutes, and it's on the ground.
And turn into some hot tub for some jerk in L.A. to sit in and do his ecstasy
Right.
to feel something when he could actually probably feel something by going to the woods. And you know what I mean? Like this connection, these feelings we're seeking are actually available without all this synthetic.
Were you a tree sitter? Did you ever sit in
mediation.
those trees?
So this is the tactic that we
Yeah.
use to try to save these places is
Right. To climb up
into
and
the trees,
yeah.
use climbing harness, and we build these platforms, and we occupy the tree, and they can't cut it down without killing you, and which they haven't been willing to do just yet, although they've
We're gonna
certainly
take a
employed other tactics. But so we were up in the trees, and we have ground support send us food, little pulley system worked out. They have the system all worked out, right? And ropes between the trees, so it's like a little tree village, a little bit like the Ewok
You're
village,
on the air, by the way,
actually.
caller. You have a comment?
And it's like nothing else in the world. I gotta tell you, if you haven't tried it, I think there's a website called treesit.org, or if you just Google tree sitting Pacific Northwest,
You learn a lot about it.
Yeah, you can actually do it.
We have a caller. Are you
The battle
on?
isn't over.
Are you on,
They're
caller?
still cutting. They're still logging.
Are you with us? I guess not.
But it's really a life-changing
Maybe I can find it here.
experience,
Hang on a
and,
second.
I'm really glad I did it.
Are you with us, caller?
It's,
No. Try again. I think it'll work
basically,
now.
It's just not that hard to do. And by the way, the views up there, 200 feet.
Yeah.
It's really something else. And
You're on. Hello.
it's a heck of a way to connect with the world. And you really,
Mm-hmm.
you
Go
know, it's not
ahead.
a theoretical thing. You actually
Hello?
connect with something that's been living for 1,200 years. You know what that's like.
Guess not. Sorry
It's hard
about
to
that.
explain, but and you know, I've seen young kids who had like addiction problems and whatever, anxiety, recover because they were able to reconnect with nature and heal and you know, feel life instead of, as I said, all these like
Right.
natural like sirens and alarms.
Right, but you know, people who
So that's what I'm talking about. You can't really be concerned about the environment unless you actually can connect to it from your heart and spirit. And this is what indigenous cultures have always tried to maintain before we wipe them out, along with
Right.
their habitats and then the animals and you know everything that disappears when you destroy. When you can't see the beauty, all you can see is dollar signs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of an old growth tree, you have another Starbucks or something. So you know you get your gratification, but it's not what it could be.
But obviously this doesn't go unopposed. There's a lot of
Unopposed?
problems. Well, when you go up and stop a company like Pacific Lumber
yeah,
from
yeah.
making millions of
It's
dollars, and
particularly bad. They like to clear cut the hell out of those redwoods.
and they respond to folks who do protest what you're doing.
Yeah, they don't want people getting in the way of their profits.
And we know what with Daryl Cherney, we know what
Berry.
happened to Judy Berry. We know, tell about. Did you meet? Did you know Judy Berry?
Speak
Or
up,
no?
become a target.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You know, it takes some amount of courage and commitment to do these things,
Mm-hmm.
or just a sense of you care, you have some compassion, you
Right.
want to do the right thing, and Judy Berry was an organizer who organized something with a lot of other people, and as part of Earth First, which is a group. That's what you should Google, Earth First, and they had this thing called Redwood Summer back in the 90s, based on the concept of Mississippi Summer, because most Americans had no clue what was happening on that part of the continent. Definitely not in the media, So
Right.
the idea was, let's get people from all around the country to come and be a part of this, and And so we'll really, put it on the map, let them know that this is what's happening to their treasure, this heritage, this collective heritage of ours
Sure.
is just being wiped out. And so it was fairly successful until I'm not sure, the FBI or whoever
Right.
it was that put a bomb in her car and nearly killed her and injured Daryl, her partner and
Right.
activist, and but they're a legend because they were able to really galvanize a community
Okay.
and the nation, in fact, get so much attention for these trees and places. And a lot of people have gone up in those trees, and not just myself. There was Julia Butterfly. There was she stayed up there for nearly 2 years in a redwood tree. That's pretty interesting. And then there's my friend Jeffrey Lors, who started the Fall Creek Tree Sits in Oregon, Fall Creek in the Willamette Forest, and he's actually doing a 23-year sentence right now in jail. He was sent to jail when he was 21 because he set an SUV, 2 SUVs on fire.
That's what I was going to get at. Let's step back a second, because
car dealership in Oregon to
sitting in
statement
trees
about climate change, and no
one
one was
thing,
hurt, or
right.
they gave him the sentence because they said you're an eco-terrorist. This is this
Right.
phrase that they've coined in the timber industry, PR industry, eco-terrorists. So now we're terrorists for.
So there's been quite a few
Sticking up
attacks
for
on
the,
people. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that
well,
folks are in
part of the
jail.
attack.
I mean, recently a
Right.
whole, I can't keep track of all the names, but a whole bunch of people who were involved in these kind of activities have gone to jail for very
Gone to
long sentences.
jail.
Just in the last few years. And we have
Labeled
eco-terrorism is a new thing.
Eco-terrorists.
What's an eco-terrorist?
Well, that
in your
phrase comes
opinion?
from the PR industries employed by the timber industry and other earth-destructive industries, and the
Sure.
media has picked up that term
Right.
uncritically, just like they do with everything else, and so it becomes part of the parlance, the language, and then
Right.
the law enforcement picks it up, so all of a sudden it has this like legal weight and meaning, and then all of a sudden you're an eco-terrorist. It's like once you can be labeled, then you're easy to isolate, and they could lock you up and throw away the key, and no one's going to ask any questions just because you're an eco-terrorist, just like they use the word enemy combatant now in
Right.
Guantanamo. It's a similar concept. But
Yeah.
as my friend Jeff said, the kid I'm talking about who was throwing away his life in jail for basically trying to do something with a life-centered ethic and make a statement about global warming way before it was hip, way before Al Gore came along, the Inconvenient Truth and
Right.
Leonardo DiCaprio's 11th Hour. My friend, who didn't have any money to do that kind of thing or fight the PR industry,
Right.
did this desperate act of setting an SUV on fire in a deserted car dealership to say, hey, there's a connection between our gas-guzzling ways and the destruction of our atmosphere. Hello. So maybe it wasn't the appropriate or whatever, but a 23-year sentence for someone who's never harmed anybody, when the guys in Abu Ghraib who tortured people got less than 10 years. I mean, okay, so his website, by the way, if you want to find out about him, is called freenow.org, because his nickname is Free. And a very principled young man, and it's a tragedy, and so this is kind of heartbreaking. But your question was,
Well, I wanted to use that as a segue, because we both have a friend in common in Brad Will, and we've covered the whole Brad Will story. And he was a person who was an activist who was went to Oaxaca in Mexico as a video
I met
journalist.
Brad in also tree sitting. Brad was from the Midwest, but he grew up. He has spent a lot of time in New York and the Lower East Side and the squatting movements. He's very much part of like the New York activism scene. But I met him in Oregon. Actually, when I met him, it was just like itty bitty little figure, because he was all the way up in the tree, like 200 feet up, and I'd never. I just walked into this forest and I heard this voice.
Right. We're playing your video right now in the background behind us. You might want to tell folks what we're playing right
this
now.
This is actually Brad's footage from Oaxaca. You're going to see, because Brad did independent video like I did, and came down from the trees, and we traveled together. He lived in New York, and he ended up going to Oaxaca last year to film the uprising next door. Uprising in Oaxaca, the poor people standing up for their rights and dignity, which is maybe something we should think about doing here. And he tell the story that no one else was telling, and tragically, a police gunman sniper shot him.
This is actually his footage right now that we're watching.
He was filming.
Right.
And
Where
so
could
Brad is dead now because of that, but his footage is with us, and we're trying to share his story because it's a very important story.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
yeah, I miss Brad terribly, but what he did is priceless, and his courage is priceless, and
Mm-hmm.
this example will not be lost. I met him doing something courageous, which is speaking up and standing up for the environment, and that's how he was killed, is standing up for what he was believed in, doing what he
Right.
believed in.
Right. Okay, well, we're playing a little bit of this video here behind us, and this is actually video that was recorded by
Brad, this is his footage.
This is
and
actually
it's
it here.
amazing. He,
This
you
is
can see
the
in his
protest in
footage,
Oaxaca, and there's
that's a picture
Brad.
of
There's Brad right
in
now.
Oaxaca,
Right.
and you can, you know, in his footage you can see that he had a real warmth and relationship with the people he was, just scoot over just a wee bit.
Okay. So you can see it a little better. You want to? We can move over and make some room. You can move
Yeah.
over a little bit more,
Sure.
and we can actually see it behind us, and folks can get a
Yeah.
good view of it.
So this is the stuff from Oaxaca that Brad shot, and
Uh-huh.
and they, yeah, well, you know, we're having a memorial for Brad this October, because that's when he was killed, October 27th,
Right.
2006, and so at St. Mark's Church in Lower Manhattan, 10th Street and 2nd Avenue on October 27th, we're going to be showing his footage and having a memorial to remember and celebrate his life,
Mm-hmm.
and remember his death. We're still trying to investigate his murder. We're also still trying to find ways to support this uprising in Oaxaca, which has faced enormous amount of repression from the Mexican military. What's amazing about the people in Oaxaca is that despite the level of terror and intimidation, and
These are
torture,
amazing shots.
disappearances, yes, this is Brad's footage. These people haven't given up.
This is shortly before his death.
This is actually a couple minutes before his death, this particular clip. And he wasn't being reckless or anything. There was other media around, but you know, when a sniper, there's no way you can see a hidden sniper, you know, with some kind of assault rifle and a scope, you know. It's just really hard to, but so we're gonna have this memorial, and it'd be really nice if people came and saw what Brad shot. And we talked about this example of the people in Oaxaca, and the reason it's not in the media here is God forbid Americans start getting any ideas about standing up for their rights and exploitation that we face here. You know, this is really difficult to watch. This is Brad after he was shot, and actually the Mexican government tried to blame the protesters instead of you know take the attention off of themselves. But you see, the protesters are actually doing their damnedest to save Brad's life. If they were interested in hurting him, they wouldn't be. There's still incoming gunfire, by the way, but they.
And there's
you know,
Brad.
it's so hard still for me to see this. They really tried to save his life, and unfortunately the wound was so fatal. It was a kill shot placed in the dead center of his body, that he couldn't survive that. And they put him in they actually found a car. This is what they're telling him. Don't give up, don't die, you're going to make it, resist, hang in there, stay strong. They wanted him to live, they tried, you know, because he came there to support them, so they tried to support him. And this is Brad back in Amsterdam when we were, after the World Bank IMF protest in Prague, we went to the squat in Amsterdam, and so they put him in this car, and but he just ran out of gas on the way to the hospital, and so he died en route. And it's so strange. Like that day, I felt something I didn't know, you know. But like when you're connected with somebody, like from the heart, you can feel things. And this is one of the main things here is love. It's just that it's such a strong force, and that's what this revolution next door is based on. That's what allows them to stand up to this terror and intimidation. A lot of people have been murdered there besides Brad,
That's the vehicle where they're trying to get him to the
hospital. Allows them to continue with this resistance. Yeah, that's the vehicle that
ran out of gas. They're trying to get him to the hospital.
And so thousands of people marched in Oaxaca to show their love for Brad, and all over the world, from New York, his hometown, to San Francisco, across the country, to Greece, and all over South America. There were protests and outrage. I believe in Greece, the Mexican consulate was Molotov, because you know what? A lot of people knew Brad because he played songs.
This is here in New York.
Yeah, this is in New York.
We were, both you and I have been at these protests.
Yes, we have.
Videotaping them.
You will admit to no further actions, but...
I've played many of these.
But yes.
I've played a lot of footage from these
the outcry
protests.
was global, and it's because, you know, Brad came from the heart and connected with people in their heart. This was in England. And that's the most important thing, is what you do in your life that's coming from your heart and what matters and means something to you. It also has meaning for other people. And so, you know, this loss is absolutely, there's still more.
Oh, good. No, I'm not turning it off.
Irreplaceable, but...
I'm trying to get a phone call in, but we're having some technical problems, unfortunately.
Priceless. You know, some things are.
Go ahead and keep on.
But,
yes.
it's just that, you know, what Brad would want and the people of Oaxaca need is for... What we need is to stay strong and remember what's most important in our heart and continue doing that instead of giving up and letting go of hope.
It's a beauty. You put together this video.
I edited Brad's footage. I had the
where can people see this?
Of
I just want to fix your mic here a little bit so we can hear you better. Yeah.
I am. Yeah. So no one's been held accountable for Brad's death or any of the other other murders and disappearances that are blocking Brad's face here.
Oh, that's all right. We played this areas. People can see it.
There's this website called blip.tv.
Right.
And
this is footage from Blip TV. Blip.tv.
Do a search for Brad Will or Warcry Cinema, and then you can see it. I just said that that his final act was not to die, but to document a revolution next door, and that's what we do. Try to document the truth and represent it, and as best we can, because it gets drowned out there when you tune into the mainstream media, and all you see is what they want you to see and what they want you to think about, and you don't even own your own thoughts. Your brain's been colonized, and so is your heart. That's why it's so important to think for yourself and feel your own feelings without getting some corporate stamp of approval about what feelings are appropriate. And, you know, dare to feel. Brad followed his heart, and you know,
so
courage. In fact, the word "cour" in French means heart, and the word courage comes from cour, courage. And so, you know, your bravery, these things come from heart. So I don't mean to sound like some hippy dippy thing here, but this is love.
No one could further be from that.
Right. Okay. Not that hippies are bad. No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying people tend to twist things around to some trivialize things. Are actually very core, important things. You know.
So Priya, you're an outspoken person. I mean, we said some amazing things here tonight. You showed us these videos you've made. How come you haven't gotten the recognition you deserve? How come I don't see you on in indie media? How come I don't see you in all these programs?
I don't know. A lot of people.
Well, we see you here. I'll let them talk with Joni and I,
and
we'll have you back. We're going to have you back on our show again, and we'll have you back with Joni is
here. I don't
here.
know. It's very frustrating to do something called a labor of love and not necessarily for money, and then feel completely ignored and unrecognized. Or marginalized.
Well, we've recognized you here.
Thank you, I really
and so do our viewers.
But I guess the lesson is don't give up, because what you do still has value. The truth has an independent value of whether someone recognizes its importance or not. Your own truth as well. So I try to hold on to that, and sometimes I get affirmation, and sometimes you don't. In fact, it's kind of a hostile world, and that's why it's so important to seek each other out and support each other and find support. And isolation can, sometimes you need solitude to cultivate your own, you know, thing, but sometimes you need support too. You can't just evolve as no man is an island, even if you live on one.
Like Manhattan Island. So you've had your...
But hey, if anyone wants to recognize me, I am a good editor, and pretty good camera person, and I'm not afraid.
How can folks get in touch with you? Priya of Warcry Cinema.
You can email me if you want at journalista1, like the number 1, at yahoo.com. That's like journal, ISTA, and like the 1 at yahoo.com. Unfortunately, my website's a little, I don't want to give that out because it's not so up to date as I'd like it to be. But you can email me.
Well, you can see your videos at Blip TV.
Yeah, or Warcry Cinema at Gmail. Maybe that's easier for you. Warcry Cinema at Gmail.
One word, Warcry Cinema at gmail.com.
Okay. I'd like to find people to collaborate with and support, mutual support. That could be really important. There's so much to do and such a need to respond to various crises in our world. And so I feel compelled to do that. That's why I do this work, and that's why we do this thing.
Right.
And, you know, it's very great that you have this show and that M&N exists and we have this outlet, and we need more of that. But it's really hard to do in isolation and in a capitalist context that's very demanding. It's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress if you're not playing by the rules of capitalism, you know, and trying to do something independent. It's really difficult to survive, let alone continue to sustain your work. So
well, the next minute or so that we have left.
Like Brad, he didn't, you know, have any money. He scraped together his pennies and went down there out of his own.
He worked 60 hours a week.
He had a lot of odd jobs.
Very
like
physical labor, in order to raise the money to go to Oaxaca. Nobody paid his way to go down there.
You know, and
he did it on his own.
He did it, and we do it again, is because, you know, you care. It's important.
We have a minute left. Well, how would you like to sum up some of the things you've said here tonight, Priya?
Well, don't forget about the trees. They still need your help. The natural world is slowly becoming the unnatural world, and so you want to step up there and do something about that for your own sake as well as the environment. And yeah, keep tuned into what's going on in your world, in Mexico, in Iraq, wherever, you know. We're connected by the heart. It's like nature. Things are interdependent and connected like a web. We're not living in isolation, even though you may feel very alone. We really are suffering and in this fight together. So try to remember that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Warcry. Priya from Warcry Cinema, often called Warcry, known
it's been an honor
throughout
and
New York.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for coming and your great work as an editor and a videographer, and we hope to have you on again pretty soon with Joni when she comes back and do some more, play some of the same video again, give people an opportunity to really see it in depth because you have some interesting material to offer. So we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.